Hear from you, Douglas County.
Sean is in Roseburg.
It just drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy, too.
And Feinbaum can suck on a bag of potatoes.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Welcome in, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to be with you here on this Friday, December 6th. Our first time cracking the microphones here in the month of December.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks
I can't believe
that we've been gone. But
Dude,
man,
this
man.
has been a long week. It feels like.
It's been a long couple of weeks.
It really
and
has. It doesn't even feel like Friday.
Start of the high school basketball season really threw I don't want to say threw a wrench in things middle of the week, but it definitely kind of just changed the week this week. Normally,
it was a late Wednesday.
Well, we've had like 12 weeks of high school football on a Friday, so Fridays are jam-packed with so much going on. But now we got basketball season, so we've got a lot going on even during the rest of the week. So,
dude, it doesn't even
it's really
feel
picking
like,
up.
It doesn't even feel like a week ago I was in this room watching my Raiders just absolutely lay an egg.
Well, 1 week ago yesterday was Thanksgiving, and you were watching Thanksgiving Day triple header football,
which was boring except for the first game.
So it's weird how fast the time goes, but we are back after a 2-week hiatus. We were off last week because of the Oregon State Beavers playing their regular season finale, their final game of the season. That was last Friday when Oregon State was taking on Boise State, a 9 o'clock kickoff here in the state of Oregon. So we were off the air for that. And then Knight just got to sit around and watch his Raiders.
Well, I had to do work.
Yeah, you had to do work. Watch your Raiders.
Well, yeah, I watched the fourth quarter, and the Raiders go down the field. It looks like they're going to be able to kick a field goal. My bet's looking pretty good.
You know what? I was going to say this, and maybe it sounds a little bit spoiled, but is it not the worst when you got to work, when you're trying to watch a football game, or you're trying to watch live sports?
100%.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. It is the worst, especially when you're a Raiders fan, and yes, that in itself is pretty bad at the moment. But also why are they playing this game at 12 o'clock on a Friday? It's the only NFL game. I'm sure if it's Black Friday and they want to do the Black Friday games and you have the game at noon, the game at 3, and the game at 6. That's great. You can space them out. But one game at noon on a Friday when people like us have to work.
Well, it's just reminiscent of
brutal
previous years with the Civil War on a Friday, Black Friday, kicking off at noon. And prior to this career in radio, I used to work in banking, and Black Friday was a day the banks were open. And I remember a couple of different times, and these were days before you had a cell phone that you could stream sports on. I know, novel concept for you there, youngster.
Okay.
But
you act like I wasn't old enough during that time where there weren't cell phones.
Well, when you were born in with a 2 at the start of your birth year, that is always interesting. But nonetheless,
I was there for the flip phone era.
Oh, good. I was there a pre-flip phone era where it was just a little brick, and I found one of those, and I meant to share it with I can't remember who I was oh, they'll get a kick out of this, but I've got It wasn't my first cell phone, but it was like my second one.
Like
the old Nokia that you could play Snake on. Not like the big box
the big box phones.
My dad did have one that was kind of bigger like that.
I thought that would have been so funny if you like tried
that's like the 80s.
No, but like if you had like the big like brick phone.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about like the big box
one. No, I know what you're talking
about.
about.
If you had that and like tried to call in for like a show would be so funny.
Well, I actually had a toy one of those back in the day. Like it was, just beeped and like kids have little play toys now, but like it was one of those and it looked just like it.
Yep.
Because that was the thing. Welcome into the program here on The Score today. It is Knight Jarecki and Joey Keeran here hanging out with you, talking some football on this Friday. Welcome to our tailgate party. We got high school basketball coming up tonight, but before that, we are gearing up for tomorrow's Big Ten title game. Today, I've really been focused on it a lot, and I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get a little excited / nervous for tomorrow with the Ducks playing in the Big Ten title game, trying to finish off an undefeated season before the playoffs.
And not only that, but it also starts today with conference championships. Like you got, Boise State versus UNLV on a Friday for a chance to go to the college football playoff. I mean, that's what's cool about the new bracket is that, like, we're going to get into this a little bit more a little bit later, but the fact that Boise State and UNLV are in a play-in game on a conference championship game on a Friday, like this is much-watched TV.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many times, like, people were locked into the Mountain West championship game. Like, I don't know. Like, this isn't, unless you're my cousin. Actually, this is funny. I was playing video games with my cousin yesterday. My cousin's from rural Ontario. He's from Sterling, Ontario. Population maybe 4,000. And he's never watched college football, but he got the college football video game this year.
Okay.
And so, like, over the summer, we played it a little bit, and I was talking to him, and this was in, August when I was there? And he was like, first dynasty I did, New Mexico. And I was like, what? And he was like, I just love New Mexico. I picked New Mexico. They're so good. And so yesterday.
Just he loves the state?
He's never been to New Mexico.
He loves the Lobos?
I don't know what it was. He picked New Mexico. So yesterday we played college football 25 against each other for the first time. Since August when we last played, he finally had a weekend off, and so he hit me up, and so we played yesterday. I was like, hey man, how's that New Mexico dynasty doing? He said, I finished it. And I was like, what do you mean you finished it? He said, I played 30 years. I made New Mexico into a 5-star program.
30 years?
Since 30 years of the college football video game, he made New Mexico into a 5-star program. And I was like, all right, man, where do you go from there? And he's like, well, I just started a new dynasty at Colorado State. I was like, why are you choosing these Mountain West schools? He's like, I just love the Mountain West. And so unless you're my cousin that randomly loves the Mountain West for a random reason, you may not be paying attention to this game. But now, because this is a playing game for the college football playoff, this means something. People are going to be dialed in today.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't 12 teams supposed to water everything down? I think it's been a fantastic season of college football.
Oh, 100%.
And I don't think the 12-team playoff, the fact that there are teams that are going to still have their season matter. Like right now, we're jumping the gun a little bit on today's show, but right now, previous years, 14 playoff, Ohio State, Alabama, so many teams that they know they're getting in because they've got 2 losses, but they're not in the top 4, but they know they're still going to be playing. Their season still matters. Right now, they're not seeing mass departures from their programs into the transfer portal, declaring for the NFL, guys just saying they're sitting out because there's still games that matter coming up after this week. So it's really, I think, has helped out. I do have some thoughts on the fact that could it be a disappointment that this is the year that we go to 12 teams? Could that be a disappointment for Oregon fans? I have that question to get to a little later on in the program. But our focus right now is the Big Ten title game. It's coming up tomorrow, 5 o'clock from Indianapolis. Later on in the program, we are talking with Danny Havel. He is one of the co-hosts of Danny and Justin on Fox Sports Eugene. That is one of our friendly stations up there. I don't want to say partner station. We don't have any truly written down agreements on being partners, but friends of the program here. We love those guys up there and talk to them quite often. Danny is out in Indianapolis. They've been doing their show, which they do noon to 3 every day through the week. They've been doing their show live out in Indianapolis this week. Pretty cool for them, and we get a chance to check in with Danny and find out just kind of how things are going out there in Indianapolis ahead of the Big Ten title game. That'll be coming up later this hour. But Oregon kicks off tomorrow against Penn State at 5 o'clock. That is, of course, where we've got to begin things with today's program. Let's crack a cold one. Get this tailgate party started.
Nothing gets a tailgate party going like a nice cold beverage. So let's crack one open and kick off today's show with our top story.
I think their scheme's really unique. I don't think we've played anybody that does quite what they do on offense, this season. So that's something else that kind of really sticks out to me. And then defensively, they're relentless. They're a pressure-oriented team. They got great pass rushers. They got a great, great safety. They got some really talented players. So this will be a great matchup for us. We're certainly excited about it.
Tomorrow on CBS, you can also hear the game, the call with Jerry Allen, Mike Jorgensen, Dusty Hara, Joey McMurray. The call on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN, starting with pregame at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, Ducks and Nittany Lions. That was head coach Dan Lanning on the Bald-Faced Truth, a program you can hear right here on The Score from 3 till 6, Monday through Friday. That was yesterday's show. Dan Lanning doing a little bit of a preview of the Nittany Lions. 3.5-point spread last I looked.
Yeah.
And, man, just your feeling right now going into this matchup as an Oregon fan or as a broadcaster, either way, just your feeling going into this one. I kind of started looking at the numbers, and a lot of times I find okay, if this goes well for Oregon on this spot, then I think this would be no problem. But look like on paper two very, very evenly matched teams.
100%. I think that's what stands out to me is that when I think about this matchup, I think, Oregon hasn't seen a defense like Penn State's, and Penn State hasn't seen a defense like Oregon's. I think that's the thing that stands out the most. And this is going to be a game where I think the offense is going to determine who's going to win the game. I think both defenses are going to play well. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. And we kind of saw, Oregon struggle a little bit against Wisconsin at Wisconsin for a night game. Penn State did the same thing. That was the same situation for them. The main thing that stands out to me when I look at this Penn State team and defensively is that they have the quickest rate to pressure of any team in the country. What that means is they get to the quarterback faster than any other team in the country. And with Dylan Gabriel, he's done an all right job this season avoiding pressure, but he's also a smaller quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that worries me a little bit, especially with this Penn State defense where you got some tall, lengthy players defensively, and you have a top 5 pick in Abdul Carter on the other side. That's a little worrisome. Oregon's offensive line hasn't faced a defensive line like Penn State's. They have playmakers all around. At the same time, Ashton Genty had some success against Oregon in that, early season game, and it took him a while to kind of get going, and he had that big run that kind of broke things out and kind of inflated his numbers a little bit, finishing with 192. But also, Oregon hasn't faced a running back of that caliber up until this weekend. You can say what you want about Quinshon Judkins of Ohio State, but after that, there really hasn't been too many great running backs, and Penn State has 2 of them. They have Katron Allen, and then they got Nick Singleton. And both of those guys are really, really good running backs. Pair that with a really good tight end, and we saw that Ohio State's tight end had a lot of success against Oregon in that Ohio State-Oregon game. Tyler Warren's better. Tyler Warren is probably going to be one of the first 3 tight ends selected in next year's draft. Penn State produces tight ends, and Warren's the next great one. And so it worries me a little bit. At the same time, Penn State struggles against ranked teams, and their offense struggles against ranked teams. Drew Aller has not been successful. They've only won against 2 ranked teams over the past 2 years. Those teams, Iowa and Illinois. Those teams don't scare me.
Yeah.
And their offense struggles. I think their offense is averaging under 20 points per game against top 25 teams. So it's going to be a game decided in the trenches and defensively, in my opinion. And whoever's offense probably scores 21 to 24 points, I think that team's going to win.
Yeah. I looked at it. They're both, of course, I wrote not a ton. I wrote down a page of notes, and I left them on my desk before the show got started. So going from memory here, they're both in the top 4, maybe 5 in, total offense, total defense, scoring offense, scoring defense. they're both up there, and they're not separated by much. They're one spot between each other. Total offense, or scoring offense, Oregon scores 2 more points than Penn State on average. Scoring defense, Penn State holds teams to 2 points less than Oregon does this season. So, statistically, they're looking very even. You mentioned a ton of stuff that Oregon's going to face defensively, and I think, you just you have to turn it around against Penn State and say they're going to be facing probably some of the best collection of talent that they've seen all season as well. They lost by 7 at home against Ohio State. You mentioned struggling against top-ranked teams. They beat Illinois, but they only win by 14.
21-7.
Where Oregon destroyed Illinois in their game. Oregon got, actually, that was at home as well. So I was going to say Oregon got most of its toughest games all at Autzen Stadium. Great schedule for Oregon this year. And you can say what you want about that. You can use that as a knock, but Oregon can only play the schedule that's in front of them, and that's just the way it shook out this year.
Yeah.
Penn State did too, though. They had Illinois at home, won by 14. They had Ohio State at home, lose by 7. So,
the end of their season, they had Ohio State at home, Washington at home for the whiteout, at Purdue. Ooh, scary. And then at Minnesota. That was a
narrow one.
Narrow one on the road, and then Maryland at home. A lot of home games in those final 5 games. 3 of them at home, and one of those road trips is to Purdue. Not very frightening, but it just shows that winning on the road in the Big Ten in November is tough. Tough. And, Oregon got a taste of that at Wisconsin, and Penn State got a taste of that at Minnesota.
So Penn State has gone, let's see, they've played 6 straight games. Oregon had the bye, then played 1 game against Washington, and now they go into this Big Ten title game here. So maybe a little bit fresher going into this matchup. They knew that they were going to be in this game prior to that game against Washington. Maybe the mental aspect of just kind of having that secured and not having to wait to see if Ohio State loses randomly to Michigan to be able to get into this matchup. Maybe the mental aspect side of this plays in Oregon's favor. Penn State had their bye week between playing at USC and at Wisconsin.
Yep.
That
was a struggle for them too.
They went to overtime against USC on the road.
Yeah, but also Wisconsin, they were down in the 4th quarter. Wisconsin threw a pick 6 in the 4th quarter. Penn State took the lead and then eventually scored another touchdown to make it 28-13. But there was a large point in that game where, for a lot of Nittany Lion fans, they were really, really nervous about that game against Wisconsin. They gave them a best shot.
We've got the TV on in here, and it's like a commercial for a cell phone company, and it looks like a video game, football game playing, and all I'm thinking about is you playing with Mountain West teams for 30 years and having fun.
Dude, I still can't believe my cousin, out of all the teams, he picked New Mexico.
I got a buddy that's done, and he's done that, and he's played with Oregon years out. But I don't know if he's made it to 30 years or not. He probably has.
No, but just so random.
Yeah,
a kid that's he's never even been to the United States. He just picked New Mexico.
He's probably got to be really disappointed today to hear that Bronco Mendenhall left New Mexico and is headed off elsewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to find out what he named his coach, because he's going to be like, oh, yeah, well,
Well, it doesn't matter. We've got Jeff Tibbetts, who's been our coach for the last 25 years.
Dude,
so
I just and that was the funniest thing, was just finding out, well, who did you go to next? Colorado State. What is it about the Mountain West?
He's got an affection for it. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by our friends at BTB Moving. They provide labor services for your moving needs. Veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. They've got senior and veteran discounts available. You can book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook at BTB Moving. Speaking of moving, I was going to ask you this before I got distracted by the TV. This is the joys of having the TV now here in the Score Sports den.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever. I have given up.
Still no mini fridge.
So I was thinking about this just now because we mentioned Penn State at USC. And we talked about this early on in the year. Teams traveling multiple time zones to play games, it had been a bit of a struggle. Oregon has gone multiple time zones and won. They played at Wisconsin, won late in the season there, had other games on the road in Big Ten country. Mm-hmm. This is it's a neutral site game. Indianapolis, Penn State's got to travel there, but Oregon's got the longer trip. Do you think that comes into play at all? Or has Oregon proven that travel, I don't know if anybody can conquer traveling time zones, losing hours and all that kind of fun stuff, but do you think that's a thing that will tip the scale or be a part of the measurement of this game?
I really don't think so. The reasoning why is because I think that they left a little bit earlier this week. They have that.
Have they already taken off? That was the thing I wasn't sure about.
I think they did.
I would hope
so,
but I don't know.
The other thing is that this is an 8 o'clock Eastern game, so this is a 5 o'clock West Coast game. So it's not like
Pretty
they're having to play
timing.
like a 9 a.m. game, anything like that. So I think that it doesn't necessarily play too big of a factor. The one thing that maybe is a little bit interesting is I don't know if Oregon's played in a dome this season. They haven't played in a dome this season at all. So maybe that's a factor. I don't know if it is, but I'm trying to think right now. Oregon won the Fiesta Bowl last year. Other than that, they lost the Pac-12 championship in Las Vegas. That was a dome. Dan Lanning's first year, they lost against Georgia on the road in a dome.
Oh man!
So maybe it's a dome thing. That would be the only thing.
That would be such a weird thing
if they were just unfamiliar. But also Penn State, they haven't been in the Big Ten championship since 2016. I know that's a long time ago, and James Franklin coached there, but no one on this team was on that Penn State team.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That would be the only thing that I can think of. Maybe I don't think the time zone's going to be that big of a disadvantage for Oregon, but. Well, see, one thing that just actually came to my mind is this is finals week. So,
I think there might be a lot of extensions getting handed out right now, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or guys.
I hope their focus is on the football game.
Yeah, right? I would as well.
There's a Big Ten final that you should be prepared for.
Finals week indeed. It's going to be interesting. We'll take a look more. We'll kind of keep breaking down this matchup between Oregon and Penn State and Boise State kicking off. You said tonight, right?
Tonight, yeah, Mountain West Championship game. I think this is going to be the most tuned in Mountain West Championship game ever.
It's a good chance.
This is going to be millions of people watching this game. Getting championship weekend started. I think it's going to be a big draw.
We'll continue to talk about this matchup between Oregon and Penn State. We will kind of look at the college football playoff rankings. We've got Danny Havel from Fox Sports Eugene going to be joining us at the end of the hour here to give us some view from Indianapolis. Also, we'll take more of an in-depth look at the college football playoff rankings. Are you confused? Because I definitely sure am. Yes. We'll talk about Oregon State football. Their season wraps up with a loss against Boise State. Where do we go from here? We wrapped up the high school football season here last week as well. And, we just got all sorts of great stuff going on for today's program. National Signing Day just happened for college football. All sorts of stuff going on right now in the world of football. So we keep going on here. It's hour number 1 of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving. Let's get you now a sports update with Knight Jarecki.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Knight Jarecki. Well, we got our first Friday of the winter sports season, and it's going to be a busy one with lots of high school hoops. The Roseburg Indians are facing the South Salem Saxons in a non-league contest. The game tips off at 6:45 p.m. for the boys who are playing their home opener. Tune in for coverage of the game on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM, or watch the live video simulcast online at 541radio.com. Pre-game show starts at 6:30 p.m. The Roseburg girls head to Salem and get started at 6:30 p.m. The Sutherland Bulldogs are hosting the Bill Spalgatti Invitational starting tonight. The 4-team tournament features some great local programs. It starts with the girls bracket. Oakland faces Rogue River at 4 p.m. and the Sutherland girls host North Douglas at 7 p.m. On the boys' side, Oakland takes on North Douglas at 5:30 p.m. and the Sutherland boys finish out the day against Rogue River at 8:30 p.m. Tune in to hear the Sutherland broadcast starting at 6:45 p.m. on I-101 FM. Check out the full prep basketball scoreboard posted online at 541radio.com. The Roseburg wrestling team also has its first matchup of the season. The Indians are competing at the Jerry Lane Duels in Salem at McNairy High School. Matches get started at 4:30 p.m. Also, the Roseburg swim team gets their season underway at the Springfield Relays this afternoon. For Oregon State wrestling, former Roseburg wrestler Nash Singleton and the Oregon State Beavers will be in Las Vegas this weekend for the Cliff Keen Invitational. Beavers wrestlers will face off against teams from the ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, and Ivy League. OSU will be looking for its 4th consecutive top 10 finish at the event after a consecutive 8th place finish in 2021 and 2022 before a 5th place finish last year in 2023.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
This holiday season, Santa's sleigh isn't the only ride that needs to be in top shape. At Midas, the elves, the expert technicians, are here to keep you rolling safely into the new year. Right now, get $50 off brake services to make sure your brakes are ready for those holiday road trips. Treat your car to a fresh start with a conventional oil change for just $24.99. Don't let car troubles put a damper on your Christmas cheer. Swing by Midas and let them make your vehicle run smooth this season. Midas, 1068 Northeast Stevens and Roseburg.
From the Score Sports Closet, this is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving.
Welcome back here. It is our Friday edition of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. You can find our program streaming on our YouTube channel. You can head to 541radio.com, head to the Score homepage. You'll find it right there. Or you can head to YouTube and search 1490 The Score, find our YouTube stream, and you can watch it there with us. You can also go back and watch previous episodes of the program. You can also join us by giving us a call here in the studio, 541-673-5551. That's 541-673-5551. Hey, we got a ticket giveaway that we could do on today's program as well. It's not football related, but if you are a big Portland Trailblazers fan and you got nothing going on tonight and feel like making a little bit of a road trip, I got a pair of tickets to go to the game tonight. Portland taking on Utah. They are pretty decent, 200-level tickets. One of the baselines you get a chance to watch there. The tickets are free, so, I mean, that doesn't hurt either.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're interested, we'd be happy to send somebody up there to go see the Blazers. So you would just need to call in and give us some information so we can send you the tickets digitally. Feel free during the commercial breaks. If you want to go see Portland Trailblazers basketball, give us a call at 541-673-5551. That's, they dropped my cell phone. I'm not trying to call in and win, I promise. 541-673-5551. That's the number if you want to give us a call during the break, because I'll have to get some information from you that I don't want to have to do over the air, because then your information would be out there. But if call us during the commercial breaks, and we'll be happy to give away some Blazer tickets if you want to make the drive up there to go see a game. But you can also call during the show and give us your comments on what's going on, your 100%. Thoughts on the Big Ten title game, and what you think might play out coming up tomorrow. You think that, have you seen anything? Is Oregon inflating a duck on the White River again out there in Indianapolis?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't either. And I feel like I would have. They have to do it.
Yeah.
They really do.
Dude, it didn't even cross my mind that Dan Lanning and some Ducks have been in Lucas Oil Stadium, because that's where they had Big Ten Media Day. Yeah, it didn't even cross my mind until right now.
Yeah, I thought about that earlier, that this whole season started, Oregon introduced itself to the Big Ten with a massive inflatable duck, which I saw... Oregon, that was the Ohio State game, yeah. Mm-hmm. I saw it when I was walking to the stadium on that one.
Yeah. No, because we both did the same thing. We parked south of the river, and then we walked across. What a mess that was that day. so many people.
So many people. But the duck was cool.
And that was cool. They had the giant Heisman house, too, which was cool.
I thought that I don't know. I haven't really heard much about it in a while. But I thought that was supposedly going to be making an appearance at, like, every game this year, like, on the road.
They kind of flirted that idea.
Like, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
the Ducks becoming everybody's favorite. Like if it's not your team, they're your second favorite team. Like I mean, I think
unless you're Deion Sanders.
Yeah, apparently he's got some issues with the Duck.
Yeah, well, yesterday the Duck went on Pat McAfee show.
Which, can we just start by saying, look, the Pat McAfee show, I think, is a show that doesn't take itself too seriously. They have a lot of fun. I respect what they do. Pat isn't always my flavor. Like, I don't dislike him, but he doesn't always fit what I'm looking for.
Yes.
But the fact that they've got the Oregon Duck mascot who doesn't talk on a radio show, TV show.
Yeah. It's such a bro show. Like it really is,
it is.
Because that's exactly what the Pat McAfee show is. Because the Duck gets there and they're like da 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 da. Like it's just such a bro show. Like it's definitely that show that
they just give him the Duck a whiteboard and he's just writing on there.
Well, it's like a Thursday for those guys that have maybe had a few cold ones before 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
They got the tailgate party started early.
Yeah, exactly. But the Duck comes on and he has like the little gifts that he gives Pat McAfee, but they ask him some questions, and the Duck, being a good supporter of college football and being a very diligent decision maker, decided that Ashton Jeanty should be the Heisman this year, which I agree with. I like Ashton Jeanty as the Heisman choice. Now, Deion Sanders, he was a little upset because he said snaps aren't a real stat. Because that's one of the biggest things that they make the case for Travis Hunter to be the Heisman Trophy winner. I think it's crazy. I think right now, and this is something we can talk about, is like the Heisman race right now. Like, I really don't think that it's blown out. Like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, the Heisman Trophy's over. Like,
really?
Travis Hunter's won the Heisman Trophy. And in my opinion, like, I think that, like, they're just discrediting what Ashton Jeanty's done this season. Also, like, in the last game of the year, like, Travis Hunter had 3 touchdowns. They're up like 45-0 against Oklahoma State, and they're still having Travis Hunter in the game catching touchdowns, up 45-0. You know what Boise State did? They sat Ashton Jeanty in the second half of many games.
Very many games.
Because they were in control.
I mean, yeah, if you want to, imagine if I got that many touches and imagine if Ashton Jeanty played a full 4 quarters every single game.
Exactly.
So, have you seen the Ashton Jeanty imperialism map? Have you seen this? You know what I'm talking about? So you get an FBS school gets the territory closest to them. If Ashton Jeanty has more total rushing yards than the entire team does, like that school, he wins their territory. Boise State land is Jeanty land. He is Ashton Jeanty is the subtext here. So there's only like maybe a dozen schools in the country that Ashton Jeanty alone doesn't have more rushing yards. And Oregon is not one of them. The Oregon Ducks, as a team, do not have more rushing yards than Ashton Jeanty does this season.
Wait, can we try to guess these?
Go for it. I got the map right here.
So Iowa?
Iowa is on. They have rushed for more than Ashton Jeanty.
Okay.
So that is still Iowa territory.
Are any of the service academies, like Air Force?
Air Force is on the list.
Navy? Army?
I don't see Navy.
Oh, man.
Wait, no, there's Navy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't see. Oh, and there is Army. Okay.
Okay, so I got.
they're small territories, so I had to zoom in.
Okay, so I got 4.
You've got 4, yep.
4, oh gosh.
And I don't know if it tells me how many total there are, but I mean, I'd say it's around, it's 20 or less.
Oh my gosh. Is Penn State on there?
Penn State is, they still own their territory.
Okay.
There's some unexpected schools on here.
Is there now? Oh
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, if you got them all, man, that would be.
I'm surprised I've gone 5 for 5 to start right now.
Right now, I'm just trying to make sure I know all of these logos. There's some in here that there's at least one that I'm not going to know, probably. I think the rest of them I think I know. So the list includes...
Any Power 5 schools? Power 4 schools?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Including one that I think you're a big fan of out of the Big 12.
A big fan of out of the Big 12.
Yeah.
ASU.
Yes.
Really?
ASU.
Stataboo, eh?
Yeah. Another program that your cousin's a big fan of.
New Mexico?
New Mexico.
Yeah, let's go.
And the team that Boise State's playing tonight.
UNLV?
Yeah, they're on the list.
All right.
Both Kansas schools.
Really?
Kansas State and Kansas are both on there. Utah State.
Utah State. That actually surprises me. Utah State's always been like a pass-first program.
Northern Illinois, Notre Dame.
I would have not gotten Northern Illinois. Notre Dame I maybe could have gotten to.
Tennessee, Clemson.
Tennessee makes sense. Clemson, honestly, a little surprising.
A&M, Texas A&M.
Okay.
Sam Houston.
I would have got that.
Tulane. USF and UCF.
So there's a lot more than 12 then, right?
Yeah, probably here.
Yeah.
We got Liberty, we've got Marshall, Ohio of Miami, West Virginia, James Madison.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of
Old
schools.
Dominion.
Dude, I'm just happy that
Navy,
Mexico's on
Army.
this list.
UConn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, UConn, there was like...
And then one school that I'm not sure in Texas that I don't recognize their
What does it
logo.
look like? Is it purple?
Jackson State is also. Oh, and there's another one that I'm not
What's
sure.
the school in Texas look like?
That's what I got there.
Oh, that's Texas State.
Is it Texas State?
Yeah,
okay.
the Bobcats.
Yeah, I just am not familiar with their logo, I guess.
So you got South Alabama in here, Jacksonville
Okay, South
State,
Alabama. Okay.
which is also
Those were the
in
two that I
Alabama.
wasn't going to know.
Yeah. Old Dominion you got?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
the rest of them I think I got.
It's so funny looking at this list. It's literally just like a big photo of Ashton Genty.
Pretty much. He has owned the rushing totals this year. So, I mean,
Marshall, yeah?
you look at that. There is okay, so I might have been underestimating. There's maybe 25 schools on there.
Maybe.
And like there's 130 college FBS teams.
35 or something like
so
that.
He's outrushed. His rushing total is more than probably like 110 schools in the country.
Ridiculous. Well, I think one of the biggest ones, and I don't know if it's still true, but it was like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, it was like leading rushers. It was like Ashton Genty after contact.
Yeah, after contact. So, I mean, it is hard because, look, we can say both are good. Travis Hunter's good.
Yeah.
What he is doing is fantastic. But also, so is what Ashton Genty's doing. And I think to just write it off the fact that, he's just a running back and that Travis Hunter plays on both sides of the ball. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
you also, like, if you're so good, Travis Hunter, and he is a very good player, but also, like, you lost to, like, below 500 Kansas at the end of the year. You controlled your destiny to the Big 12 championship, and you lost that game.
And, I would say, so I think the Heisman Trophy, which we got into here in this segment, the Heisman Trophy, what is the award for? Is it just the most talented college football player? Is it the player that's most valuable to their team? Is it the player that did the most to win? Is it the best player on the best team in the country? What is the Heisman Trophy? If you think it's the person that's more valuable to their team being successful, I don't see how it can't be Ashton Genty because his team is more successful, and he's been a massive reason
that's
why.
That's always been, like, one of the requisites, at least recently, right? Like, you have to, like, lead your team to, like, a conference championship game.
Is usually kind of part of the equation, yeah.
That was, like, a big reason why Bo Nix, didn't necessarily win the Heisman because they lost to Washington.
Yeah.
Like, if Oregon wins against Washington last year, I think there's a case that Bo Nix wins the Heisman. I really do. I think that was the big damper on his name, is they lost to Washington twice, and so they didn't want to vote Bo, and so they voted Jaden Daniels. And even though, like, Jaden Daniels didn't have necessarily the most successful season, like, they liked Jaden Daniels because, again, kind of like the Travis Hunter stat padding in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That was, like, a big factor in it, too. I don't know. In my opinion, I like Ashton Genty a lot. I like Boise State a lot. I mean, their only loss is on the road against Oregon by 3 points. Like, it wasn't even like he lost that game. It was the special teams that lost that game. It was 2 special teams touchdowns the Ducks scored to survive and win that game against Boise State.
For sure.
Like, there's a reason why Boise State is 11-1, and that reason is Ashton Genty.
Yeah, totally. And I think that is a very legit reason why he should be probably your Heisman. I mean, I think he'd be my pick. Maybe I'm probably a bit biased. I've always kind of rooted against this whole Colorado scheme. I think it's just spite.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I have
I
any
don't really
better
have
reason,
a problem
but-
with Colorado too much. Like, I mean, Oregon dominated them last
Yes.
year. Like, I just really think Ashton Genty's that good.
Yeah.
Like, that good. And you know, it's funny because I was looking at it the other day. Like, Melvin Gordon had a ridiculous season in 2014. He lost the Heisman to Marcus Mariota. But, like, what Marcus Mariota did that year was absolutely incredible. He had like 42 passing touchdowns, only like 4 interceptions, threw for over 4,000 yards, plus ran for like another 700 and had another like 12 or 13 rushing touchdowns. Like, yeah, that's the exception. You know, like Melvin Gordon ran for like 2,500 yards and, you know, 25 touchdowns. That probably should have won him the Heisman Trophy in any other year that Marcus Mariota does what he does. I think that what Ashton Genty's done this year is almost as good as what Melvin Gordon's done, borderline better.
Yeah.
Because he scored more touchdowns, and depending on what he does tonight and what he does in the next game, you know, he could probably break what Melvin Gordon did in the next 2 games. If he averages like 179, he breaks Barry Sanders' record for most rushing yards in a season. So there's that factor too. I just don't think that Travis Hunter, what he's done, equates to like what Marcus Mariota did in 2014. I think he's a good player, but I don't think the stats necessarily show that he's just been overwhelmingly better. Like I think that like you're undervaluing running backs and what they do. And you're seeing it in the NFL too, right? Like people are undervaluing running backs, but all of a sudden you're like, wow, Josh Jacobs left and signed with the Packers. And what did he do yesterday? He scored 3 touchdowns.
Doing well.
What did Saquon Barkley left?
Saquon's been doing well.
And he's been doing really well. So maybe elite running backs are good.
Yeah,
you know,
are nice to have
are
on your
good
team.
to have on your team. And I think that like, you know, like people are undervaluing what running backs are doing because there was this narrative pushed for the next like the last like 3 years where it's like, oh, like, you know, you can just survive with running backs no matter what.
Yeah,
and then
you just go get another one.
You just go get one in the 4th round or sign a free agent, and then you get stuck with Zamir White. And, you know.
Oh, listen to the Raider fan. All right, we got to get to a break because when we come back, we are headed out to Indianapolis where the Big Ten title game is taking place tomorrow. We're going to be talking with Danny Havel. He's from Fox Sports Eugene. They've been out there all week doing their show live, and they've been getting a chance to soak it all in. We'll hear more about what's going on in Indianapolis when we come back. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving here on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
Score news update. Good morning, Kyle Bailey. In Idlewild Park, man died in a sedan versus motorcycle accident Wednesday afternoon. Oregon State Police reports that just after 2 p.m., troopers responded to the crash on Highway 138 East in Glide. Preliminary investigation indicated that an eastbound vehicle driven by a 75-year-old Glide man was attempting to turn left into the parking lot of a business. Sedan entered the path of a westbound motorcycle operated by 26-year-old Reuben James Wild, causing the motorcycle to impact the passenger side of the sedan. Wild was declared deceased at the scene. Operator of the other vehicle and a passenger were both reportedly uninjured. The highway was impacted for approximately 4 hours during the on-scene investigation. Primary cause of the crash considered to be an unsafe turn. OSP was assisted by the Glide Rural Fire Protection District and the Oregon Department of Transportation. In sports, the first Friday night of the winter sports season going to be a busy one with high school hoops. Roseburg Indians facing the South Salem Saxons in a non-league contest. It tips off at 6:45. The boys playing their home opener. Coverage will be right here on The Score. Watch the live video simulcast at 541radio.com. Pre-game show starting at 6:30. Roseburg girls head to Salem. They get started at 6:30. Sutherland Bulldogs hosting the Bill Spelgatti Invitational starting tonight. 4-team tournament features some great local programs. It starts with the girls bracket. Oakland faces Rogue River at 4. Sutherland girls host North Douglas at 7. On the boys' side, Oakland takes on North Douglas at 5:30. And the Sutherland boys finish out the day against Rogue River at 8:30. Hear the Sutherland broadcasts with Dan Bain on I-101 FM. Check out the full prep basketball schedule. It is posted at 541radio.com. In the Umpqua Valley, chance of fog early this morning. Otherwise, mostly sunny. High clear up to 59 degrees. Clouds tonight. Some rain coming in overnight. 44 the low. On Saturday, chance of showers turning to rain. 100% chance, maybe a half inch of rain expected. And a high about 52 degrees. More rain into Sunday. Kyle Bailey on The Score.
The spirit of the holidays should be a vision of warmth and comfort. For some of our friends and neighbors in Douglas County, the hopes and dreams of the season have been drastically changed. You can help when you wish upon a star. Road Credit Union and The Score would like to add your name to the list of people who see a tough situation and want to help. We're looking for people who will take a few minutes and tell us a story of a Douglas County area individual or family in need. Road Credit Union and The Score's Wish Upon a Star program can make something special happen in what may seem like an impossible situation. If you know someone who truly needs help, nominate them at 541radio.com or send a letter to Wish Upon a Star, 345 Northeast Winchester Street in Roseburg, 97470. You can also drop a letter off at Road Credit Union on Northeast Stevens or on Garden Valley. Please be sure to include as much detail as possible and daytime contact information. Thank you for making Wish Upon a Star a special part of our holiday celebration. Happy holidays from Road Credit Union and The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
Getting you ready for the high school football season in Douglas County. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show on The Score.
Welcome you back here to the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. We are gearing up for the Big Ten title game coming up tomorrow. And right now we are headed to the phone line where we get a chance to talk about the matchup with a guy that's been hanging out in Indianapolis for the full week here. It is, we get... What's that now?
A cold.
A cold Indianapolis. That is correct. We've got now here on the phone with us Danny Havel from Fox Sports Eugene. He is joining us here on the program to get us some insight into what's going on out there. Danny, really appreciate you joining us and being a part of the program here with us today. It's great a chance to catch up with you. Hey, man, what is the atmosphere like out there in Indianapolis going on right now? Are we starting to see, things starting to get a little bit energized out there?
Well, sunshine and 17 degrees. The wind is blowing. It kept me up till about 3 a.m. East Coast time last night, or actually this morning. But, it's going to be inside at Lucas Oil Stadium. We're actually at the Whistle Stop Inn broadcasting live this week, and we are literally, as I'm looking over my shoulder, probably about a 3-minute walk from Lucas Oil Stadium, which is all adorned in the big Oregon flag and the Penn State flag, and the fans are flocking in today. A lot of excitement, obviously, around this game. And for Oregon fans, I mean, what a year. And the first year in the Big Ten, they get to the championship game. They're the only undefeated team in the country. They're the consensus number one. Everything is laid out on the table for this Dan Lanning team, and all the possibilities are still out there. And what a year it's been.
What's been kind of the reception to Oregon fans getting out there? Have you noticed much of a presence so far? I know you guys have been out there all throughout the week, but are you starting to see more green and yellow showing up? And what are the Indianapolis fans feeling about Oregon?
Well, I'll tell you, and that's a great question, Joey. And by the way, hi, Knight. Thanks for hopping on with me as well, and thanks for asking me guys to be on the show. One, I think the Oregon fans mostly are traveling out today. Some arrived last night, but a lot of folks are coming out today. And I'll tip a hat to the airlines, and I'm not getting paid for sponsorships from United or Southwest or Delta, but they added on a lot of direct flights for Oregon fans. Now, I'm kind of a Delta snob. I did my own thing coming out here early in the week, and getting to Indianapolis, you got to go somewhere else to get here. So the airlines made it easy on Duck fans who filled planes. I know a lot of them are coming in today. The folks here in Indy were actually a little nervous because when Ohio State dropped out after losing to Michigan, hotels were getting canceled. They were actually starting to get canceled midday Saturday because otherwise people would start losing their money. So Ohio State fans were not as confident even at halftime of that Michigan-Ohio State game last week, which is kind of odd to me. So, and the ticket prices up in the upper bowl have dropped a bit. But I have a sense that there's going to be a strong green and yellow presence. We're expecting a packed house here at the Whistle Stop Inn this afternoon for our show. And I'm starting to see a few people. But, going outside at 17-degree weather, I think people are staying inside and having a warm beverage.
When you look at just the festivities going on with the Big Ten championship and just being around Indianapolis this week, how does that kind of compare to what the Pac-12 put on during their Pac-12 championships and what the Oregon Ducks kind of experienced during those championships compared to what they're experiencing this week in Indianapolis?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of history in Indianapolis, and this is a great city, and they're used to hosting people. They welcome, it's Midwest charm. They welcome you with open arms, even though they're in the Eastern time zone. So hospitality, check mark. Weather, the Duck fans used to going to Vegas where it's still going to be 65 degrees today, and obviously the distractions of entertainments of bling bling and all that. But I think that people would find if they come to Indianapolis, one, there's a deep-rooted culture here. It's my first time in Indianapolis, and I'm looking forward to coming back. I'm looking forward to coming back in the summer. There's a huge sports presence here with the Pacers, obviously with the Colts. There's professional high league baseball here. So I think Oregon fans will kind of slide right into that part of it. I think they're just going to have to get used to like the geography and figuring out where's going to be my spot to go. I mean, we were used to even going to Santa Clara and such for Pac-12 championship games, and then to Vegas. You knew where to go. You kind of had a spot to land. Well, we're gonna figure that out, and hopefully this is not the first trip to Indianapolis for the football team.
We're talking with Danny Havel here from Danny and Justin on Fox Sports Eugene. They are in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game coming up tomorrow. Oregon and Penn State squaring off in that one. I know it's conference championship, so yeah, it's a big deal, but it's not like national championship where you get a lot of lead up going into the matchup with a lot of festivities going on, a lot of media availabilities and all that with the players and coaches. What's been kind of the weekly schedule for you guys? You've been out there all week, so you've had a lot of time to be out there and get acclimated to it all, but has the conference, the Big Ten, been doing much? Has there been much for festivities leading up to the game tomorrow?
Well, there has been, and obviously the Big Ten Network, which is superb. We're going to have a couple of personalities from there on our show today. Dave Rebson, who people know from ESPN, and he actually was one of he was the first voice for the Big Ten Network when they signed on back in the mid-2000s. Ashley Adnanson, who you guys are probably very familiar with, who was working with the Pac-12 Network, and now she's on the Big Ten. We had Yogi Roth on yesterday. I mean, they're all in. I mean, everybody's excited, and talking to Steve Jones, the play-by-play announcer for Penn State, talking to Josh Pate from college football, CBS, and he's got his own YouTube sensation that goes on. There's an excitement around the new Big Ten, and obviously it's an arms race. It's clearly the Big Ten and the SEC are going to dominate the landscape when it comes to college football. And so Oregon, their first year in the Big Ten, there's an excitement. There's a energization. I just made up a word. The energy is there for Oregon, Washington, UCLA, USC, the West Coast being built in. Because, if you take a look at the map and the geography, I mean, you could say, it's like when I moved from Illinois to Oregon, all my family said, you're going to fall off the end of the earth. Well, I mean, the Big Ten was kind of landlocked all the way to Nebraska. That was the furthest west they went. So this is exciting, and the media is embracing it. The energy is there. So I think it's a great thing overall. And yeah, I mean, the Big Ten, if they could have mapped this out, this probably is the best thing in the world. Now the old guard, the Indianas or the Rutgers or the Marylands, the Iowas of the world, they might be a little bit, hey, who are these interlopers coming in? But every person, every play-by-play person I've talked to, and we've talked to them all year long, every writer that covers the teams, they're all excited about this new energy that's in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about the energy and just kind of the energy around the Oregon fans and the Oregon football team right now, you can also look at the Penn State side, too. A big opportunity for them being back in the Big Ten championship. As you talk to the Penn State folks, what's kind of been the overall vibe for them as they head into Indianapolis this weekend?
Well, they know they're punching up a little bit, but not much. I mean, I think the line this morning, and I checked it again, it was still 3.5, as Oregon's a slight favorite in obviously a neutral site. I think the biggest thing is that there's a sense of relief because once Ohio State lost to Michigan and Penn State locked their ticket as they were taking care of Maryland to the Big Ten championship game, they knew they were in the playoff. Now it's like, are we going to be the number 1 seed or are we going to be 5 or 6? And there were people, in fact, we had Steve Jones again on our show earlier in the week, the play-by-play announcer for Penn State. He was telling his wife before the Maryland game, you know what, honey, I haven't had 3 days off between basketball and football for a while. And, I'm going to have a few days off because, we're going to get to sit and wait a week before we figure out where we're going. And then he has to tell her when he comes home from the football game, guess what? I'm heading to Indianapolis. So there's excitement in it, and there's also relief on the Penn State side. We talked to Audrey Snyder from The Athletic, who covers Penn State, and she says, listen, they want a game in Happy Valley. And I think Oregon's going to do their best to make sure they have a game in Happy Valley in a couple of weeks. But there's a sense of, okay, now we've got an opportunity from out of nowhere to be the number 1 seed. And that's a reality. I think the winner of this Big Ten championship game is a lock to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff when that's revealed on Sunday.
It's definitely going to be interesting. A couple of final questions here for Danny Havel from Fox Sports Eugene out in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game. Have you been over to Lucas Oil Stadium as of yet?
They don't let us in yet. I've been walking around it kind of stalking. I don't have the credential to get in yet. I'm supposed to pick those up today, but I'll be on the air when they get those released. But I've walked around it, and it's a massive structure. It's a palace. I was actually fortunate when I was covering the Big 12 with Kansas State. I was inside Jerry's World, the Jerry Dome, when it was still under construction. They hadn't finished it yet, and they had media days down in Dallas. And I thought that was a palace. Holy smokes. This place will put that to shame. And I think people will get a good sense of that when they watch it on CBS Saturday night. It's fantastic. It's right in the middle of downtown. There's a lot of activity around it, federal buildings and such, and obviously some watering holes. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of tailgating because, again, it's going to be 15 degrees. But inside it's going to be nice and warm, climate-controlled, 72, and a fast surface, which I think bodes well for the Ducks.
Well, that was my next question. You haven't been inside yet, but coming up tomorrow, the Oregon Ducks and the Penn State Nittany Lions will be in there. You've been talking and breaking down this matchup every which way all week long on your show.
Yeah.
Give us a quick synopsis. What do you think happens on Saturday?
Well, I've been saying this all week. If Oregon can get out to a fast start, if they're up 14-0, then I think there's big problems for Penn State. If this ends up being sort of a script like Wisconsin threw at Oregon, it's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a field goal. It could be last possession. These defenses are elite on both sides. You've got the consensus defensive player of the year, defensive lineman of the year, and Abdul Carter, who actually moved to the defensive line this year from a linebacker position at Penn State. He asked the coach, he says, I want to get down in front. And he's been a beast. I want you guys to also look at a kid who's a linebacker, Kobe King, whose older brother is in the NFL with the Packers right now. He's a force on that side. I think if Oregon can force Drew Aller to try and take over the game, the quarterback from Penn State, I think that bodes well for the Ducks. They're going to have to stop the running game. They're going to have to stop Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They're going to have to establish that. Penn State's defense only giving up 14 points a game. They have 32 sacks. They're going to try and disrupt Dylan Gabriel. I think that's going to be the matchup. Watch on the defensive side of the football. I see this. I put it down as 24-20. I think Ducks will cover. I think they'll get into the end zone just enough, and the defense, Tasha Lupoi's defense, will step up enough. Tight end Tyler Warren for Penn State is a freak of nature. He's a generational talent. They put him all over the place. You're going to see Drew Aller split out as a wide receiver. You're going to see a lot of gimmicky stuff on the offensive side for Penn State, but I think the Ducks will manage that. I don't think Penn State has seen the speed and the physicality on the Oregon side, on both sides of the football, that they've seen thus far this year. The closest they had is Ohio State, and they lost that game by 7 in Happy Valley. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. It's going to be must-see TV. If you're looking at anything else, your eyeballs aren't anything else Saturday night, you're just wrong.
It's going to be a fun one, and he's out there getting a chance to take it in firsthand. Been talking about the game all week long. Danny Havel from Danny and Justin on Fox Sports Eugene. Danny, I'm really happy for you that you guys got a chance to be out there all week talking about this game and previewing it, and enjoy the game tomorrow. Thanks so much for the time here today.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me on. Be well.
That is Danny Havel from Fox Sports Eugene up there on the Danny and Justin show. You can catch them every day there in the afternoon on KORE up in Eugene. So, man, really jealous of them getting a chance to do their show out there all week long. But we got to get to a break here. We're running a little bit long, so we'll hit the top of the hour break, and when we come back, we are going to continue talking. I mean, it's just this is the game coming up. It's huge. But we do want to touch on Oregon State, what's coming up, college football playoff rankings, recapping the high school football season as we have officially finished that out. So a lot to get to. It'll be a jam-packed second hour. Don't go anywhere, folks. More of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving coming up here on The Score.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Nate Jarecki. Well, we got our first Friday of the winter sports season, and it's going to be a busy one with lots of high school hoops. The Roseburg Indians are facing the South Salem Saxons in a non-league contest. The game tips off at 6:45 p.m. for the boys who are playing their home opener. Tune in for coverage of the game on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM, or watch the live video simulcast online at 541radio.com. Pre-game show starts at 6:30 p.m. The Roseburg girls head to Salem and get started at 6:30 p.m. The Sutherland Bulldogs are hosting the Bill Spelgatti Invitational starting tonight. The 4-team tournament features some great local programs. It starts with the girls bracket. Oakland faces Rogue River at 4 p.m. and the Sutherland girls host North Douglas at 7 p.m. On the boys' side, Oakland takes on North Douglas at 5:30 p.m. and the Sutherland boys finish out the day against Rogue River at 8:30 p.m. Tune in to hear the Sutherland broadcast starting at 6:45 p.m. on I-101 FM. Check out the full prep basketball scoreboard posted online at 541radio.com. The Roseburg wrestling team also has its first matchup of the season. The Indians are competing at the Jerry Lane Duels in Salem at McNairy High School. Matches get started at 4:30 p.m. Also, the Roseburg swim team gets their season underway at the Springfield Relays this afternoon. For Oregon State wrestling, former Roseburg wrestler Nash Singleton and the Oregon State Beavers will be in Las Vegas this weekend for the Cliff Keen Invitational. Beavers wrestlers will face off against teams from the ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, and Ivy League. OSU will be looking for its fourth consecutive top 10 finish at the event after a consecutive 8th place finish in 2021 and 2022 before a 5th place finish last year in 2023.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services, such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Who are the Elks?
We're your friends. We're your neighbors. We are the Elks.
We believe in supporting our veterans and youth. We are the Elks.
We believe in giving back. We are the Elks.
All that we are missing is you. Visit discoverelks.org today and join us in the premier charitable and fraternal organization in our state.
'Tis the season for huge savings on your holiday gifts at your local Coastal.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, just what your holidays need.
Shop from December 3rd through the 10th for everything you need to have an unforgettable holiday. Choose from 10 patterns of Victory pajama pants for the whole family at just $6.99 a pair. We're your one-stop holiday toy shop. Get something unique for the kids with specially sourced farm and ranch toys that you won't find at a regular retailer. Save a special 30% off Valley Ranch and Country Life branded sets for your little ranchers. Plus 30% off all toys from Paradise Kids. We have toys for your pets too. Browse our full pet department for deals like 25% off all holiday dog and cat toys and 25% off all regular cat toys.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, just what your holidays need.
Whether for the home or the farm, we're decking the stalls with deals at Coastal.
Local sports talk in Douglas County. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. Fridays, noon to 2, right here on 92.3 FM KWRZ Canyonville and 1490 AM KSKR Roseburg. We're The Score, Douglas County's home for sports. It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show, presented by BTB Moving. We're setting up shop, so pop open the cooler, pull up a seat.
Who wants to have some fun?
Let's talk some pigskin.
How about if your team is going undefeated in your league? Maybe the rest of your league's not that good and you had one good team that just was able to beat up on everybody else. But now that the SEC's eating its own, oh no, it's just so deep. The league is so deep. It just drives me crazy.
Drives me crazy too.
And Feinbaum can suck on a bag of potatoes.
From the Score Sports Closet, it's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show.
Oh man, the conversations never stop here in the Score Sports Den. We're improving. We're growing.
Yeah.
We're adding new pieces.
Innovation that excites.
We've got Is that the Invesco QQQ?
I don't know.
That might be a car commercial, I think.
I don't know. I think, what is it? Innovation that excites? Is that Toyota?
It's familiar, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
All I thought of was Invesco QQQ, which always makes me think, QQQ, QQQ, QQQ. Welcome back here. Yep, we're having a good time here in the studio as we bring you the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving.
I'm trying to think. I think Arizona State, they're number one in innovation. That's what they post every year. It's like Arizona State, the number one university for innovation. What does that mean?
What does that mean?
What does that mean? I'm pretty sure that's
what do they innovate?
I remember going to Arizona State because we broadcast there last year because we had volleyball and football there the same weekend. So we called volleyball on Friday and then football on Saturday at Arizona State. And I remember walking around the campus being number one in innovation or something like that.
What does that mean? What are you innovating?
Number one.
Curious.
Yeah, it is. Arizona State, for the 10th year in a row, takes top spot for innovation.
Who's judging this competition?
By U.S. News and World Report.
Okay, I guess
this is something they brag on. What does that mean?
Yeah. I'm curious what they're doing. They need to be making this more well known because I have no clue what it is they're innovating.
Yeah.
Interesting. Tomorrow, the innovation of the college football playoff, it will kind of really be, these aren't necessarily elimination games, at least not for everybody. There are some that will be, but tomorrow we get conference championship weekend underway for a lot of them. Tonight we get some as well.
Tonight's an elimination game.
Yeah, tonight is pretty much an elimination game. I was.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think Boise State should be in if they lose tonight, or do you think that what if it's 45-44?
So a tight, high-scoring game.
Yeah.
Well, Boise State's at what, number 9 right now?
9 or 10? 10?
Let me see.
I think they're in 10.
I got to look up the rankings again. See, this is where this is a perfect segue getting into it. I was going to mention that tomorrow, obviously, we got the Duck game going on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN, but we also have a sports special for you. Tune in for the SEC title game coming up tomorrow right here on The Score. Coverage from Westwood 1. It'll get started at 12:30. So Texas and Georgia. It'll be a big one there for sure. We've got coverage of that for you coming up here on The Score tomorrow at 12:30. SEC title game action. So tune in for that tomorrow afternoon. All right, so Boise State is currently number 10. You are correct. Number 10.
Yep.
If they lose. No. They're going to say that Alabama's 2 losses are better.
I understand that.
Yeah, no, I don't think they do.
But
I think they should?
That's what I was asking. I'm not asking what you think the committee will do. I'm asking what do you think? If Boise State, their 2 losses on the year are by 3 on the road at Autzen
the number
Stadium,
1 team
against the number 1 team in the country, and then a loss by, let's say, by 1. Let's say it is 45-44. A loss by 1 to a top 20 UNLV team that is they're 10-2 on the season.
Yeah.
With their 2 losses being
against 2 top 25 teams.
Yes.
2 top 20 teams.
Yeah.
Whereas Alabama's 2 losses, they've got a loss to a mediocre 6-6 team or something.
I think losing to Oklahoma should eliminate you from the playoff.
Right? I don't
even think, is Oklahoma bowl eligible?
I thought they were at 6. I thought it was a 6-win team, but and Miami has a questionable loss.
I would take Miami in the playoff over Alabama.
I would probably agree with you on that. I would love to try and make the case for them. I just have a hard time knowing that now looking at this
Oklahoma
with all the teams.
Did go 6-6.
Looking at all these teams, I just don't see that it would happen. And so that's where my hang-up is here on trying to say that Boise State should be in. It's just not going to happen. So I can't. I'm just going to get hung up on trying to make that case.
I
know that is a head scraper, but
they weren't even. They lost to Texas 34-3. They lost to South Carolina 35-9. They lost to Ole Miss 26-14. They lost to Mizzou.
So every other team that's right there along with Alabama in that portion of the rankings. You mentioned Texas, obviously. They're number 2, but you've got Ole Miss at number 13 and South Carolina at 14. Tennessee's number 7.
During this
so
stretch,
these are all teams that are right there. Alabama's right in the middle of all of them. Oklahoma got blown out by pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And then went on and beat Alabama.
They had the Red River rivalry in that game.
That game was terrible.
Bad game. Just really boring game. And that was October 12th, same day as Ohio State, Oregon. Right? There was that day.
Yeah.
Since that point, losing to Texas, the only other team that Oklahoma won a game against, other than Alabama, which they won 24-3 and dominated defensively.
Just dominated.
They beat Maine. That's it. they beat Maine and they beat Alabama. That's the starch difference.
That is.
If you go through your SEC schedule and you're losing every game except one to Alabama, I don't think Oklahoma's good. Their offense is 130th in the country, and Alabama lost to that.
Yeah,
they lost.
Their offense put up 3 points. Their defense couldn't stop a terrible offense.
Yeah,
just all around, just bad performance.
Well, I mean, that was the big thing is that Jalen Milroe threw 3 interceptions. He threw a pick 6, and he threw an interception in the red zone that resulted in short field. Oklahoma, in the third quarter, Milroe throws an interception, and they get the ball on the 14-yard line. 5 plays later, they're in the end zone, and then he throws a pick 6. It was 10-3. Oklahoma did have a 12-play, 67-yard drive. If they just do that, they still win the game. Alabama can only score 3 points.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, this is...
And I think that's where, some people are frustrated with the 12 teams because they're there's the case that everybody should not, be in.
Not everybody should get in.
But, to me, it's if you're looking at, the last losses for Miami compared to Alabama, Miami has 2 quote-unquote bad losses in the last 3 weeks. They lost to Georgia Tech by 5, and they lost to Syracuse by 4. We saw what Georgia Tech did against Georgia.
Yeah.
Yep.
Eight overtimes.
Actually, you know what's really funny, and I think about that game, that Georgia Tech game, is that this came up actually earlier. Josh Pate was talking about it. Penn State, they're 33-1 against every team not named Michigan and Ohio State over the last 3 years. Do you know the one loss?
No.
To Illinois in 9 overtimes.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Remember that game?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the only time. So that's what made me think of that. But you saw Georgia Tech go up against Georgia. Probably should have won against Georgia. There was a couple of times where, calls didn't go their way, officiating didn't go their way, and they had multiple opportunities. Georgia Tech could have easily won that game. What would they be talking about Georgia? The narrative would be, oh, Georgia Tech's a good team.
Yeah.
They aren't giving them that credit right now. So I think that's a bad assessment of people. And Syracuse is a top 25 team. And they were up 21-0 and they lost by 4, but still, I would way rather say, this team that lost by 4 on the road against a top 25 team, that's a better loss than the team losing to a 6-6 Oklahoma on the road that has a 130th offense. I don't know.
Yeah,
to me, I think Miami has a better case.
It is, and this is, I think this is college football. Like NFL, you can scream and yell and whatnot, but the setup is You just have to, your record gets you in based on where you're at in your division and your record, and it's pretty straightforward. The fact that college football continues to use the human element to decide which teams get a chance to play for the title is what leads us to what we do here on a regular basis, which does make college football fun, but it also makes it extremely frustrating because it's not an equal playing field. It's not a standard that you can rely on year in and year out. It changes from week to week, almost, it seems like at times. Oregon's got the solution. Head coach Dan Lanning's got the solution.
There's a secret to all that, John. Just win. Just win. They can't deny you if you just win. You can't complain if you just win. So, if you lose 3 games, shame on you, right? If you lose 2, shame on you, right? Win.
Just win, baby.
There's 2 things about that.
Well, let me just say first, that is from the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano on the air yesterday. That was, again, part of that interview. We brought a little bit of that to you in hour number 1, but you can tune in for the Bald-Faced Truth 3 to 6 right here on The Score every weekday, except for a couple of days we kind of interrupted early for football. But, so 2 things. Go ahead. I've got some thoughts as well.
Number 1, as a Raiders fan, he was so close to just saying, just win, baby. Like, I understand. He's a Chiefs fan. He was right there. He had the idea. He could have done it. But he didn't, which made me a little sad. There was part of me that was like, come on, just say it. Just win,
say
baby.
it.
Just win, baby. Like, that would have been awesome. The second thing is, I don't know, this is like a bad take, but it just kind of reminded me of like that old George Bush clip. It's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, foolers don't get shamed again, or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I remember that now. Yeah. My thought on this was, I heard him say that, and he's not wrong. And I saw, I can't remember, it was some sports reporter. I don't even think he's truly a football guy. I think it might have been Seth Davis, who covers NCAA basketball usually. But I saw him, like it was somebody had posted a coach talking about how, we need to be in, we need to be considered for it, making all of their case to try and get into the college football playoff. And he made his comment was, when is the coach going to come out and say, listen, we lost 2 games, so we left it up to, the human element on this. If we just did 1 more, we would have had a chance. Yeah. So we're getting what we get, My question is, it's easy to say, just win, baby, when that's what you've done all season long. Yep. You've just won all season long. To me, it comes across a little thin for Dan Lane. He's not wrong. He's completely right. I just don't believe that he would make a comment like that if it was a season where Oregon had 1 loss and was trying to convince everybody that they need to be into the college football playoff or whatever. If the shoe was on the other foot, I think he's probably out there trying to paint his team in the best light possible.
He's been on the other end. Last year, lost to Washington twice. What did Washington do? They went in and they won their playoff game against Texas.
Yeah.
And then they went to the national championship and, they lost against Michigan, put up a fight. But that was their only loss last year. Washington twice. Yep. So he's been on the other side of that coin. Mm-hmm. You could have made the case last year, like, if Oregon would have won that game against Washington in the Pac-12 championship, you could have made the case that Washington should have been in the Pac-12 championship or the college football playoff and Oregon.
And Oregon, yeah.
But that wouldn't have happened.
No.
They would have taken Washington outside of the top 4 because they just devalued the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And so in his eyes, like, I think that he's been burnt too many times and seen the Pac-12 mistreated that way, that he just understands you just got to win. Like, if you win, nobody's going to complain.
True. That's a very Pac-12 mentality.
Yes.
Like, literally, we just need to win. Which brings me to the other thing that I kind of touched on a little bit in hour number 1, was that as an Oregon fan, as guys that kind of follow the team from both a fandom as well as covering the team, that have been with this team through the time in the Pac-12, is it almost a little disappointing that Oregon is undefeated 12 games into the season in the first year of the 12-team playoff? Because, now I don't know if it was the 14 playoff, if Oregon loses the conference championship game, maybe they get knocked out. I mean, I would have had a hard time thinking that. But maybe they get knocked out of a 4-team playoff if they had lost and suffered their first loss in the conference championship. I kind of don't think they would have, but with 4 teams, it's really tight. What kind of kills me a little bit about the season that Oregon's having is the fact that they're undefeated in the first year of the 12-team playoff, which is going to be harder to win a national championship than it would have been in a 14 playoff win. So Oregon's having this spectacular season, favorite to, they're among the favorites to win a national title game. It just happens to be in the first year where it's going to be probably the hardest it's ever been to win a national title.
I think they probably still get in.
In a 14 playoff if they would have lost.
Because I think that
it just kills me that there's, they're going to get in and basically they'll be in a 6-team playoff because if they get the first round bye, they avoid one game. So they've got to win 3 games to win a title.
8-team playoff.
Yeah, 8-team playoff. So they've got to win 3 games to win a national championship in a year where it's probably been the best chance that Oregon's had to win a national championship. And there was other years. I mean, the BCS era, they had that chance to beat Auburn and win it all, and they didn't. That would have been a 1-game win to win a national championship.
Dyer was down.
Yes, he was. But it's like part of me, like, knowing that Oregon's been this good this year, and yet now to win a national championship, they're going to have to win 3 times in the postseason, at least. Maybe 4, depending on what happens tomorrow. And it's just like, God dang it, they've been so good. If this had been another era, we would have been a lot closer to possibly securing the first ever national championship in Oregon football history.
Yeah, it is a little bit, and it's tough too because, if they win tomorrow, they're going to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And the number 1 seed, it's looking like, is going to be a very unfavorable position.
There's that.
And
so that has been the conversation, 5 versus 1. And I mean, look, I guess if Oregon lost, presumably they'd be number 5. Like, I can't imagine you would drop the team that had been number 1 the first 5 weeks that suffers 1 loss. You would drop them any further than number 5?
Yeah, I don't see them dropping them below Notre Dame. I don't see them dropping them.
They wouldn't. Yeah, exactly. Notre Dame, you're right, yeah.
Because Notre Dame would be that.
They can't be in the top 4.
They can't be in the top 4. They're in the top 4, but they're not a top 4
They won't finish
seed.
there, yeah.
And that's the problem with this. Seeding, they need to restructure it. So after the play-in games, then it needs to be reseeded.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's an advantage for the number 1 seed because there's not an advantage to being the number 1 seed. You have a bye, but so does the number 4 seed. The number 4 seed also has a bye and probably has an easier game than the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I would agree. It is going to be interesting right now. I mean, I've seen a lot of different projections, and every single one of them has Tennessee and Ohio State as the 8 versus 9. That the winner of that matchup moves on to face the number 1 seed, which presumably could be Oregon. Do you think Penn State moves to number 1 if they beat Oregon tomorrow? I keep seeing that being the conversation. I guess it could depend on how bad, like what Texas does.
Yeah, I think that's the question. And I think that, there's a big SEC bias, and we can get to that clip eventually. I really think that that Texas beats Georgia and, they handle them pretty well, I think Texas is going to be the number 1 seed. But there is an insane amount of SEC bias. And,
big time.
There's a certain – because there was National Recruiting Day, there's a lot of conversation about that and why SEC bias is such a big factor.
Were you going to play that clip? You got that now?
Clip.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go for it.
So, you know how we get to this time of year and everyone wants to yell SEC bias if you give benefit of the doubt to an SEC team and you give benefit of the doubt to strength of schedule in the SEC. Here's why. Yet again, 12 of the top 20 classes were from the SEC, and then 5 of the top 20 were from the Big Ten. So 17 of the top 20 classes were from the Big Two conferences. 58 of the top 100 players in the country signed with SEC teams. Is that right, Jesse? 58 of the top 100. That is more than all other Power 4 conferences combined. That's why there's the SEC bias piece. I'm just telling you, when it comes to an either or, and I have to make a call one way or the other, and you see me lean SEC, that right there is why.
Very interesting. That's Josh Pate, some analysis. That's interesting. I mean, it's easy to just say Disney, ABC, ESPN, they are in contracts with the SEC. So, why wouldn't you promote your product that's going to be on your station and make your money?
Yeah, it's a moneymaker.
Yeah.
It is. Like, promoting the SEC the way that it does and get more viewers, it helps ESPN a lot. There's a reason why Joe Tessitore during that Georgia Tech game.
Kept yelling.
If Georgia gets in, they clinch their spot in the college football playoff.
Yeah, that was not a great look on that side of things. I mean, there is definitely reasons why you should be skeptical of the mouthpieces of sports, and because you got follow the money, as with everything. But also, that's an interesting point in the fact that the rankings or the ratings of the players that are on these teams are skewed towards the SEC. So if everything else is equal, I guess, yeah, you just kind of look at they've got the guys that are supposed to be the best players in the country. They've got more of them down there. So, yeah, that's going to be the better conference. Now, I would say also, are we saying that the SEC is better because all of the ranking outfits out there are all they're saying these are the top guys. Well, if those are the top guys and they go to the SEC, well, then we better say the SEC is the best, but otherwise our rankings don't matter because, everybody's got to prove themselves to be right.
To me, this is where it doesn't matter, is because 3 years ago, Texas A&M had the #1 recruiting class in the country, and
what did that get them?
What did that get them?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's more about the players that are on your team than it is the rankings of the players on your team. I mean, look at Oregon, right? Dylan Gabriel was a 3-star recruit. Bryce Betcher was a no-star recruit. Now he's a starting linebacker, racking up Big Ten awards, might win the Burlsworth, all-conference player. There's several guys on the Ducks that weren't highly rated. Now, don't get me wrong,
there's plenty of highly rated ones in there.
There as well. You got Evan Stewart on that team. He's a 5-star. Mateo was borderline 4-star, 5-star. There's some good talent on Oregon's team, but also a lot of these guys. Kobe Savage, he had to go the JUCO route and then work his way up. And then he transferred to Oregon after spending some time at K-State. Wasn't easy for him. Tez Johnson, he wasn't highly recruited. He went to Troy. And he found his way to Oregon. And, he's playing his way into a high-end NFL draft pick. And he's pretty good. And sure, maybe having Bo Nix as your adopted brother certainly helps that opportunity to come to Oregon. Actually, I was thinking about that the other day. Tez Johnson has been such a big addition to Oregon. And when he committed to Oregon, it was just oh, what a wholesome story.
Yeah.
Bo Nix's brother is coming to play at Oregon. I don't think any of us thought that Tez was going to have the career that he's had.
Yeah, that he has been such an integral part of it.
And so,
for sure.
It's a big story about that. But, I don't really think that the recruiting matters. I think it matters to some extent. Sure, getting a 5-star.
You need
Dante
players.
Moore is going to help out next year, and having Dante Moore as your backup quarterback is, better than having whoever that you have in the kitchen. Some other programs. I mean, look at Utah this year. Utah went through the ringer with how many quarterbacks they had to use this season. So there's definitely benefits to having a good recruiting class, and a lot of that's the depth, but it doesn't matter. Your 3-stars are going to succeed. I watched that Georgia Tech game. There were several times where, there was players from Georgia that were making an impact. The guy that had the hit on Haynes King to force the fumble, I looked up him. He was the number 48th safety. He was a 3-star recruit. It was that guy wasn't highly recruited, but he committed to Georgia, and he's out there and he's making a play. Cash Jones, I think his name was. He was a walk-on at Georgia, and he caught a touchdown in that game. It doesn't matter. It's about what the guys are out on the field. I think that's a bad take. Just saying, oh, well, I got to pick this team over this team because they have higher recruits on their team. To me, it's the same thing as an NFL team. The Jets are spending a lot of money on their team. You go out, you get Aaron Rodgers, you get Devontae Adams. Guess what? You get 3 wins. That's where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're spending the money and, you're getting these high-level players.
Yeah.
If you're not winning games, it doesn't matter.
For sure.
I think coaching and the players out there matter more than just the talent on the roster. That's my opinion.
It's the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving. You can book your next move with BTB Moving. They provide the labor services for your moving needs. Veteran-owned, affordable, dependable, efficient, and careful. Senior and veteran discounts are available, so book now at 541-315-0122 or find them on Facebook at BTB Moving. That's 541-315-0122. We got to get to a break, running a bit long here. Oregon State, what's the future hold? We will take a look a little bit at the Beavers. We wrap up the high school football season, and we finish off hour number 2 of our Friday edition here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show on The Score.
For your Score Sports Update, I'm Nate Jarecki. Well, we got our first Friday of the winter sports season, and it's going to be a busy one with lots of high school hoops. The Roseburg Indians are facing the South Salem Saxons in a non-league contest. The game tips off at 6:45 p.m. for the boys who are playing their home opener. Tune in for coverage of the game on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM, or watch the live video simulcast online at 541radio.com. Pre-game show starts at 6:30 p.m. The Roseburg girls head to Salem and get started at 6:30 p.m. The Sutherland Bulldogs are hosting the Bill Spelgatti Invitational starting tonight. The 4-team tournament features some great local programs. It starts with the girls bracket. Oakland faces Rogue River at 4 p.m. and the Sutherland girls host North Douglas at 7 p.m. On the boys' side, Oakland takes on North Douglas at 5:30 p.m. and the Sutherland boys finish out the day against Rogue River at 8:30 p.m. Tune in to hear the Sutherland broadcast starting at 6:45 p.m. on I-101 FM. Check out the full prep basketball scoreboard posted online at 541radio.com. The Roseburg wrestling team also has its first matchup of the season. The Indians are competing at the Jerry Lane Duels in Salem at McNairy High School. Matches get started at 4:30 p.m. Also, the Roseburg swim team gets their season underway at the Springfield Relays this afternoon. For Oregon State wrestling, former Roseburg wrestler Nash Singleton and the Oregon State Beavers will be in Las Vegas this weekend for the Cliff Keen Invitational. Beavers wrestlers will face off against teams from the ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, and Ivy League. OSU will be looking for its 4th consecutive top 10 finish at the event after a consecutive 8th place finish in 2021 and 2022 before a 5th place finish last year in 2023.
Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving is a labor-only company offering statewide services such as packing and unpacking, loading and unloading, piano moving, cleaning services, and 24-hour emergency services. BTB Moving is an affordable, veteran-owned company here to help with your next move. Call 541-315-0122 or find BTB Moving on Facebook. That's BTB Moving for all your moving needs.
Oregon's only statewide sports talk show wants to hear from you, Douglas County.
Sean is in Roseburg. Sean, welcome.
The Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano is talking Beavers, Ducks, the NFL, Blazers, and more.
Let's go to Daryl, who's in Myrtle Creek.
Share your opinions by calling 503-417-7575.
Let's go to the phone lines. Kelly is in Glide, Oregon. Is that right, Kelly?
That's right. Hi. I can't believe you took my call.
Sports talk or Oregonians. It's the Bald-Faced Truth with John Canzano. Weekdays 3 to 6 on The Score. Hanging out and talking ball. This is the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show on The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
Welcome you back here. Cruising right along, hour number 2. Just so much to get to. This is what happens when we miss a week. Happy to be with you here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. Don't forget, we're now watching the Big Ten Network here in the studio, and they've got stuff going on there at Lucas Oil Stadium. Don't forget, tomorrow it is the Big Ten title game. Pre-game coverage starts at 3 o'clock on News Radio 93.9 FM and 1240 KQEN. Kickoff just after 5 o'clock. You can tune in for that game coming up tomorrow, Ducks and Nittany Lions. Speaking of the programming, really quick here, coming up tonight, we've got high school basketball for you. You heard Knight there during the commercial break with the sports update, but tune in for Roseburg boys basketball.
I wish.
Yeah, it'd be fun to be off broadcasting that. It'll be fun tonight. there at Stuart W. Robertson Memorial Gymnasium as well, as the Roseburg boys have their home opener tonight. Welcome in South Salem. We'll have coverage getting started at 6:30 here on The Score, or watch online at 541radio.com as well. And also tomorrow we've got the SEC Championship game, Texas-Georgia. Coverage starts at 12:30 here on The Score. So we've been talking plenty about the Ducks. I know a lot of excitement. There's still games to go on this season for Oregon. The season comes to an end for the Oregon State Beavers. They kind of put up a bit of a fight against Boise State, just could not hang in there. That came off of their big upset win over Washington State in the week before.
Yeah, won the Pac-2 championship. They can celebrate that this year. But good old Tom Eggers got a Pac-2 champion shirt.
Right. Pac-2 champs. So where I was, let's see, it was Monday before Thanksgiving, so it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a flight with Mike Parker. We were off to Texas to do some men's basketball. Him and I were walking in on the plane together, and we were talking, and I made the comment just about how the nice thing right now in college football is that, yes, they're starting back over at ground zero for the Beavers. But in this day and age of college football, to me, it feels like you could have the opportunity to rebuild a roster a lot faster than you might have in previous eras of college football. Transfer portal makes it possible. Now, you're also fighting against the fact that, Oregon State probably doesn't have the deepest of pockets. They're going to have to find Mike kind of countered my argument on that, and that they're still going to have to rely on the thing that has always been the thing at Oregon State. They're going to have to find the diamonds in the rough. They're going to have to build more 3-stars into top talent than other programs are going to have to do. And so maybe it comes in waves. But, how do you feel about Oregon State's future after what we saw this year and knowing what's to come? They've got one more year as this Pac-2 before things really kick off with the addition of a bunch of new schools and the recreation of the Pac-12 conference.
I think it's tough. Because, you heard Jake Dickert talk about it a little bit today, is that, by this time next week, Washington State's going to have 20 players in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Oregon State's going to have, is that before you could develop these 3-stars and make them into diamonds, the Damian Martinez's of the world. And guess what happens? They transfer.
Yeah, now you work so hard to build them up, and then they go to a blue blood program.
Exactly. You find them, you recruit them, you bring them to your program, you give them a shot, and they take that shot, and they find success, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And that's where Oregon State's going to be at. Now, here's the good news for Oregon State. Right now, they're 67th in the recruiting rankings. They're ahead of Washington State. They're ahead of Vanderbilt. They're ahead of UCF. They're ahead of Cal.
Yeah.
They're ahead of UNLV.
Huh.
They're ahead of Boise State.
Dang.
They're ahead of San Diego State. They're ahead of a lot of those teams.
A lot of their conference.
That's
their
going to be
future conference.
They're going to be joining. Fresno State, they're ahead of. So they're doing really well in terms of recruiting, and they're going to bring in a lot of guys, and I'm sure they're going to hit the portal strong.
Yeah.
Anthony Hankerson's coming back next year. That's big. Ben Gulbranson, presumably the starter next season. He's coming back, it sounds like, according to Coach Bray. It sounds like, some of the pieces are starting to fall. Nobody's transferring just yet.
Yeah.
Got to bulk up defensively. That's the big thing is
And, this year definitely was tough because they had such a mass departure. They had to try and kind of scramble to bring in guys for this year. Probably had to rely on some guys that in a different year, maybe they redshirt, maybe they spend more time developing as a backup, had to rely on those guys to do a lot of heavy lifting. So this year, obviously tough. Injuries were huge. Just the turnover from Jonathan Smith to Trent Bray. So now we can maybe have a chance to get his feet underneath him. I think there's reason for some optimism around the program. I don't think it's going to be dire forever, but I feel like the rebuild that Jonathan Smith went through compared to the rebuild that Trent Bray is going to have to go through, I think it's going to be tougher the second time around.
I think so too. And it's a little bit tougher because you're recruiting kids to a new Pac-12 conference.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the difference. When with Jonathan Smith, you'd say, hey, you come to Oregon State.
You're still playing in L.A.?
You're still playing in L.A. You're playing, Oregon, you're playing Washington, you're playing USC, you're playing UCLA,
Stanford.
Like those are big time programs, and you have an opportunity to win a Pac-12 and make it to the college football playoff.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have that same opportunity, and maybe you do.
Yeah,
if you win the Pac-12, maybe you're the Group of 5 team, but it's going to be tough if they do end up making it.
What do you think the likelihood is? So obviously we've got this new Pac-12 that's growing, that's going to be created. Oregon State and Washington State were they're the two original members of the conference.
Yep.
They're adding the Mountain West, which was seen as a second-tier conference. They're adding a ton of teams out of that.
Yep.
So presumably the natural thought is that Washington State and Oregon State are going to be the top teams in this new Pac-12 conference. But yet you've got Boise State who's joining, who's going to have a legit chance of being in the college football playoff this year, barring a wild upset tonight. So, I mean, really, you're inviting in teams. You needed them, but you might fall into the second level or into the shadows in your own conference.
And I think that's the toughie, too, right? Is that, like, before, in terms of recruiting, it was like you were recruiting against those schools. And your edge when you're recruiting against Boise State and Fresno State was
that you're in the in the Pac-12.
You're in the Pac-12. You're just a step above. You're in the Power 5.
Yeah.
And you lose that advantage now.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big advantage to going to school in Corvallis, Oregon, compared to in Boise, Idaho? You know,
I haven't been to a lot of these I haven't really been to any of these Mountain West schools to see them in person. Is the facilities, like, I mean, we always talk about facilities, the investment in the athletic departments and what they have there, because of where Oregon State was as a Power 5 team, getting more money for a longer time than what Boise State has been getting in the Mountain West. Can Oregon State tout their facilities to try and win those battles? Is that going to be the edge?
Against some.
That would be my guess.
Like, I think they're probably going to have the advantage in facilities compared to Fresno State and Utah State. Now, once you get to San Diego State and Boise State, like, I think those facilities are pretty close. I think Oregon State has a little bit of an edge, but it still is, like, pretty close to minimal. And, you know, if you're a college football kid, like, you know, San Diego, that seems like a nice place to go play football and go to school. Good weather, brand new football stadium, rich history, new young coach. Like, San Diego State seems pretty appealing.
Yeah.
Boise, you know, the city of Boise is growing. Like, I think it's the second most growing city in the country.
How easy is it to get to Boise via airplane?
I think pretty.
Can you fly right into?
Yeah, you can fly into Boise.
I know it's not a major hub or anything, but.
Like, I think it's easier to get to Boise than it is to get to Eugene.
Okay.
Like, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like Boise's a much bigger city.
Is it a bigger? I mean, like, Eugene Airport's good, but see, that's the thing against Corvallis. You know, hey, come to Boise State. Your family can easily get here, fly in for game day, and come and watch you play. Versus come to Corvallis. Your family's got to fly into Eugene and drive 45 minutes, or fly into Portland and drive an hour and a half to get down to Corvallis. 2 hours. So, I mean, these are and Washington State as well. I mean, Pullman is it's even more out in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, okay, so like the city of Boise, I mean, you have direct lines, nonstop flights from Boise to places such as Phoenix. You have, you know, like Seattle, Oregon, Portland, all those, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles. But then you also have Dallas, Fort Worth, Chicago, Atlanta, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
So it's very much kind of on par with Eugene.
Yeah.
With the Eugene airport.
A little bit, but a little bit further destinations. You can go to Atlanta. You can't go to Atlanta from Eugene.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine so. Yeah, so it's kind of on par with Eugene, and I think that's a huge draw. Like, I mean, that's a big draw for Boise State, that it's easier to get to be able to have your family coming in, to be able to go home for whatever reason, versus Corvallis. To me, and San Diego is probably going to be about the same, like you said.
Has some good destinations.
It's not that hard to get to San Diego, I'd imagine. So it's going to be interesting, but I think, as said, I think this rebuild will be harder than what Jonathan Smith had to go through.
Yes, 100%. And the other thing, too, and I don't know, like, maybe this is just me not knowing enough, but, like, they spent a lot of money on the renovation for Research Stadium. and they spent all that money with the projections that they were going to make a certain amount of money with the Pac-12. Now, with the new Pac-12 contract, you might not be making as much money, and so maybe the money that you have to spend to pay off the stadium that you're playing in, maybe that takes away from your NIL fund.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you can't spend as much in NIL because you have to...
You got bills to pay.
You got bills to pay.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's that factor, too, and there's other renovations they're going through right now. And, you know, I think Oregon State is a very, well-supported program.
Yeah.
It's a very large school. It's the largest school in Oregon in terms of student population. And, they have good investors at Oregon State, people that believe in that program. And I think that's great. But at a certain extent, like, football's your moneymaker.
Yeah.
And, watching games on the CW is not going to be what's paying the bills. Like, playing games on the CW. Because you've looked at the numbers this year. It's like 700,000 viewers.
Yeah.
What is Oregon getting? What do you think the Big Ten championship game is going to be like tomorrow? Like, I think that's going to be big. I don't know what the highest rated, Pac-2 game was this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had a couple that broke 1 million viewership, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely well below. You just had me wondering what the Mountain West Conference championship game was going to be on. I was like, does the CW have a conference championship game? That would be great. It's going to be... It's going to be interesting to see kind of how that financial portion of it all comes together.
The Oregon State-Washington State game averaged 695,000 television viewers.
And I think it was one of the better ones watched.
Yeah, it was the highest known viewership for a football game on the CW this season.
Averaging 690, that's something. It's, where I'd be curious does it say what the peak was? What their...
try to find that real quick.
Yeah, because I think it was over 1 million. I want to say I thought it was, but I thought I read that somewhere. But we got to get to a break. Knight will have an answer to that question when we come back. It's going to be interesting for Oregon State. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for this program to get back on its feet and be a contender for something at some point, whether that's, being the Boise State this year in the college football playoff.
I mean, just in comparison real quick, Oregon, Washington averaged 2.57 million viewers.
Oof, yeah, that's tough. I thought CW was nice because it's easy to get in households. You don't have to have a cable subscription, all of that kind of stuff. I thought that was a good fit. It's kind of easy to get into households, but I think the name recognition, I would imagine this year helps kind of set up the stage for hopefully bigger numbers in the future.
So,
but
2.57 for the Oregon-Washington game, that was the sixth most watched game for the Ducks this season.
Yeah, that's tough. That is tough.
Yeah.
We got to get to a break. When we come back, we're talking high school football. We'll wrap up what we saw from the state of Oregon and National Signing Day as well. We'll finish things off here, hour number 2 of the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving.
The spirit of the holidays should be a vision of warmth and comfort. For some of our friends and neighbors in Douglas County, the hopes and dreams of the season have been drastically changed. You can help when you wish upon a star. Road Credit Union and The Score would like to add your name to the list of people who see a tough situation and want to help. We're looking for people who will take a few minutes and tell us a story of a Douglas County area individual or family in need. Road Credit Union and The Score's Wish Upon a Star program can make something special happen in what may seem like an impossible situation. If you know someone who truly needs help, nominate them at 541radio.com or send a letter to Wish Upon a Star, 345 Northeast Winchester Street in Roseburg, 97470. You can also drop a letter off at Road Credit Union on Northeast Stevens or on Garden Valley. Please be sure to include as much detail as possible and daytime contact information. Thank you for making Wish Upon a Star a special part of our holiday celebration. Happy holidays from Road Credit Union and The Score, 92.3 FM and 1490 AM.
'Tis the season for huge savings on your holiday gifts at your local Coastal.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, just what your holidays need.
Shop from December 3rd through the 10th for everything you need to have an unforgettable holiday. Choose from 10 patterns of Victory pajama pants for the whole family at just $6.99 a pair. We're your one-stop holiday toy shop. Get something unique for the kids with specially sourced farm and ranch toys that you won't find at a regular retailer. Save a special 30% off Valley Ranch and Country Life branded sets for your little ranchers. Plus 30% off all toys from Paradise Kids. We have toys for your pets too. Browse our full pet department for deals like 25% off all holiday dog and cat toys and 25% off all regular cat toys.
Coastal Farm and Ranch, just Just what your holidays need.
Whether for the home or the farm, we're decking the stalls with deals at Coastal.
A dog? I'm not. I was born for a purpose. To bring you hope. To guide you out of darkness. To stand by you as you rediscover life. When past battles cloud your mind, I push them away. You tell me I'm your hero, just as you are mine. You hold me when you're afraid, whisper that I saved you. With me by your side, no challenge is too great, no night too dark. I'm your guide, your companion, your friend, your light. A dog? I'm not. With me, you see the world again.
Discover hope at Dogs Inc. Visit us at dogsinc.org to learn more.
Come hang out at our tailgate party. Give us a call at 541-673-5551 or send us your thoughts on the 541 radio app or find us on Twitter at KSKR The Score.
Wrapping things up, our final segment here on the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show. Not sure if he's still watching. I believe it's your dad commenting on the YouTube channel here, asking what shirt I'm going to wear for the game tomorrow. He still thinks it matters.
It does matter.
I haven't worn It's Damn Green in Eugene since we determined that it was not a good luck shirt at the start of the year. So, Stosh, you can be. I got that right? Yeah. You could be. You can breathe a sigh of relief. I am not going to wear the grass is damn green in Eugene for the game tomorrow.
That is so
I have
funny.
made. There's been a couple of times I've almost grabbed it, and I was like, nope, not today. Not today, Satan. And so we'll have to figure it out. I'm actually working in Eugene at the USC and Oregon women's basketball game earlier in the day.
Yeah, with my good buddy Eli Kleinman.
Yeah. So I don't know what I'll have to change into some sort of game day attire because I'm not going to wear it for the game. It would be kind of weird to wear an Oregon shirt while working for USC radio.
Yeah, I might have a USC shirt somewhere.
I don't want to wear it either way. Yeah. So, I just kind of try to dress nice and then go with that.
Yeah.
Ask Eli what he's wearing tomorrow. I need to know so that he doesn't like outshine me too much,
You know, that's a good
I
question.
usually just try to wear a collared shirt. I'm not doing a full-on suit, but some of these LA guys, they go full on. And
knowing Eli, it wouldn't put it past me to see him in a suit.
Yeah. The guy that does the men's game, I think Jordan is his name, if I'm remembering correctly from last year. He's usually pretty low-key. He wears some khakis and an athletic kind of long-sleeve polo.
So every time I've seen Eli broadcast, and we've broadcast together, not actually together on the mic, although I did go on his pregame show one time at the Pac-12 championships. That was a little bit of fun for basketball. I was there in Vegas, and literally 5 minutes before, he's like, "Hey, you want to hop on the pregame show?" And I was like, "Sure."
Heck yeah.
I was like, "Sure." So I did that. But he's definitely worn suit every single time I've seen him. But also that was student radio. When it was student radio,
you kind of try to do it. You're dressing for the job you want, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Well, and I think that with student radio and kind of the situation you're in, you kind of dress like a TV broadcaster. I think that's just kind of the mindset that you kind of have, and with the people around you.
Well, and you're trying to put together reels and whatnot that it will be impressive, and so looking impressive helps.
Now, I wouldn't also put it past him. I'm sure when you're the broadcaster for USC women's basketball, I'm sure they give you a nice little package of
I'm sure.
polos and quarter zips and such.
Yeah.
And that's what Joey wears. Joey wears
that's what Jordan wore from when I've done the USC men's games with him, and when he was doing the women's games last year that I did.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Eli's wearing a USC polo.
I've done UCLA, and those guys have shown up at times. Sometimes they've been a little more casual. Sometimes they've been full on suit and tie and everything. So
Well, I'm getting breakfast with Eli tomorrow, so I can text you what he's going to wear.
I'm not necessarily completely concerned with it, but I
six-piece tuxedo.
I did
Joey,
have this
don't
moment.
show up.
I did have this moment where I was like, "Oh man, I wonder what he's gonna if I'm gonna be like look like a slob sitting next to him."
No,
But
I think we're just dress shirt.
I'm not too worried about it. So whatever,
Yeah,
it'll be what it is.
Yeah.
So you got a chance this last weekend to be at a state championship football game.
I did,
and I was unable to be there. I was actually working other things as well once again. So
trading off, eh?
Yeah, exactly. You got to watch as the Oakland Okers wrapped up their season. Unfortunately, did not pull out the championship, losing in the state title game against St. Paul. We had North Douglas in the 8-man state title game. They unfortunately fell to Adrian. Just kind of putting a final bow on this high school football season. Just that Oakland game. Take us through it. I mean, we know what happened, but just why? What was the difference in that one there Saturday?
St. Paul's defense. St. Paul's defense stuffed Gabe Williamson, made it hard for him. I think that with Gabe, for a majority of the season and with a lot of teams, he wore defenses down.
Yeah.
And, by the second half, he was just rolling. And we saw it against Myrtle Point Pacific. They did a good job in the first half, but then the second half, he has 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and he's able to run away. He never had the opportunity to do that. And a turnover late, certainly dampened things and gave St. Paul a short field to go and take the lead. It was tied, and, Oakland had the ball. They were in control, killing the clock, moving the ball down the field. Turnover, St. Paul gets the ball, they go down and score a touchdown. And having a young sophomore quarterback try to lead your team down the field is a little tough, especially in a run-first offense. And with Gabe Williamson not having his finest day and just the way that St. Paul was able to contain him, it forced a lot of 3rd and longs, 4th and longs. And with the young Fullerton, it just was a little bit too much for a run-first team. And I think that was the big difference, is just the defense for St. Paul did a really good job stopping the run and forcing a run-first team to try to throw the ball. And, that's what you're going to have to do if you want to stop Oakland, and that's exactly what they did. And it was tough. It was heartbreaking. You could tell that a lot of the players really, really were sad.
Well, we were talking about it beforehand. You had mentioned it was Arscott, was it? No.
Yeah.
Who were the guys you were talking about that they were like, they used to all play youth together and they were really...
Gabe Williamson, Corbin Hoover.
And Hunter Vaughn from North Douglas. They wanted to get a chance to get a photo with all 3 of them with a state championship ring, and unfortunately, North Douglas also comes up short.
Yeah.
They just ran into a buzzsaw against Adrian, and it's shocking to see North Douglas, a team that had just been doing so much all year. They just were really incapacitated in that game against Adrian, and just it's wild to see. But you know what? That's state championship games, and sometimes there are teams out there that are really, really good.
Yeah. Our pals at Mid-Major Media said Adrian may have been the best team at 1A and 2A. They were that good. And, the way that they played against North Douglas, they showed that they were that good. Hunter Vaughn was putting up Ashton Genty numbers all season long.
Even better.
Even better than Genty. And then the last game, it was 15 carries for 13 yards.
Yeah.
It was bad how
it was just
how good they did.
It was great how it was. Amazing how good Adrian's defense was to be able to slow down North Douglas.
The rushing
average,
I should say, it was bad. You're averaging less than a yard per carry.
Yeah,
that's a little tough.
It was pretty amazing to see how good Adrian was in that one. But nonetheless, second place finishes for North Douglas and Oakland. Very good there. Congratulations.
Great season for Hunter Vaughn too.
Great year. Forever.
We talked about him having a bad game rushing. He still had 287 yards
all-purpose yards. Yeah, he did a little bit of everything. Had over 100 yards receiving in that game, and didn't get it going on the ground, but did have it going elsewhere. Great season football-wise here in the Umpqua Basin all around. It was a lot of fun to watch for our local teams. Really excited to see how things continue to develop going forward for everybody going into next year. We'll definitely be looking forward to previewing all of that coming up next August as we get ready for the high school football season. And I think there's a lot to be excited about. Obviously, graduation comes for everybody, and that's always hard. But there was a lot of positives and a lot of big things that happened for local teams. It'll be fun to see which teams are able to kind of capitalize that and continue to go. We unfortunately are out of time here today. It's amazing how that happens in 2 hours. But we have run out of time, and it is time for us to head on out here on this Friday. But we will be back coming up next week as we then will know what the 12-team college football playoff looks like, and we'll have a lot more to continue to talk about as we make our way into the postseason for college football and start winding down the NFL as well. For Night Jarecki, I'm Joey Keeran. This has been the Umpqua Basin Tailgate Show presented by BTB Moving. Thanks for joining us, folks, and we will talk to you again coming up next week. Enjoy all of the football action coming up this weekend. Don't forget to tune in for the Ducks tomorrow on KQEN. Whether it's across town or across the state, moving is always a chore. So let BTB Moving help with your next move. BTB Moving